George Beno, welcome to the Film Situation.
Thank you, Zef.
I'm honored that you're on. George is a good friend of mine, but I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit.
So I'm a filmmaker. I do co-producing and location management.
Nice. And like sort of going back to the beginning, when did you first know that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
It's a very tough question because I feel like you just are. I think there were signs. I mean, I always loved movies growing up, but I didn't take that as a sign of wanting to make movies. I just kind of loved them and loved stories and whatnot and living life. And obviously, like when you're a kid watching these movies, you really put yourself into it. And I don't know. My older brother is a grip, so I always knew you could work in the industry. Would hear stories from him here and there. I remember in high school, a class, I went to private school, and my school started like a film program, and we were like the first one, so I did it. I just signed up for it, and that was pretty fun, even though I didn't like the teacher. And, you know, we would film little stuff here and there in high school, and then halfway through college, I was like, okay, I kind of want to make movies. I saw that my school had a film program. I went to St. John's University, and
out in Queens, right?
Yeah, I was kind of at a point where like I got to do something, you know. So I saw producing, and I saw what comes with it. Like they said, if you like to travel and make movies and be a part of like projects, I was like, it sold me, you know. And but I said, like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, right? And yeah, that's when the interest really kind of grew.
Nice. And what sort of movies were you watching? Like, were you going to the movies a lot when you were a kid and that kind of thing?
I did, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the early aughts, really. You know, the movies I watched, and actually, it's a crazy thing, but like one of the first movies I remember watching actually on TV in Astoria was Eyes Wide Shut. My dad was a huge IFC guy. Always watch IFC. Yeah, it was crazy. It played on the TV. And some I think Kevin Bacon's in it. Some like horror film with there's like a ghost and a woman in a wall, or
was it The Invisible Man?
No. But yeah, so I remember watching like, you know, seeing stuff on screen and kind of just being like enamored by the cinematography, really, and kind of like these different stories. So yeah, I mean, I grew up on, you know, Shrek. Grew up on Judd Apatow. His whole.
So you're mentioning the early 2000s. Did you see Get Rich or Die Trying?
Of course.
In the movies, did you see that in the theater?
Not in theaters, no.
Okay.
I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it after when it came out. When it was
Jim
on
Sheridan
cable,
directed that, who's like an acclaimed director that directed My Left Foot. And I guess after 8 Mile came out a couple of years before that, there was like a trend of getting super acclaimed directors.
Yeah, remember Notorious? Oh, sorry. Different. I thought you were going to say there was a trend of biopics.
Yeah, there was a trend of biopics for sure. At some point, there was like pattern of they were getting like really high profile directors to make biopics and stuff. You know,
I like Straight Outta Compton. That was a really
that was a good one. That was a good one. Bye, Felicia. I was thinking about that movie the other day because I just thought of that, like how that became a popular phrase right after the movie came out. I was like, bye, Felicia.
It's funny.
When I was a kid, Boys in the Hood was the shit.
Love that movie.
That was so good.
Love that movie. It was a very good movie.
I was talking about that movie. I had a previous guest a couple years ago, Rashad Ernesto Green, and that was one of the movies that he wanted to talk about. And that was like
because it's so raw and real.
Yeah.
I think that's what, you know, that's the type of movies I kind of like, you know, the raw and real movies.
I like that as well, for sure. And so you start growing an interest in producing, and more recently, I want to say the audience, this past year, George has had a lot of success because he had a movie that he produced that was at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah. in the acid section.
Yeah, and it was called It Doesn't Matter.
Doesn't Matter.
Yeah, directed by Josh Mond.
Yep, shout out Josh Mond.
Shout out to Josh for sure. Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. Then you also had a film in Tribeca. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a big year for. So first of all, congratulations, George.
Thank you, appreciate it.
That's a big deal, man.
Thank you.
Those are two top tier. Cannes is amazing. First of all, let's talk about how amazing Cannes is.
Cannes was cool. Yeah, it was good to see our movie and our crew that we really hustled for. You know, we really, really put in the work, especially Josh and Alice and, you know, our boy Oscar. We drove cross country to Portland to film this movie. Very, very happy that it got into Cannes, the acid section, which was a really good home for it.
What's the film about?
Essentially, it's about two buddies who reconnect post-COVID and are essentially following the journey of this main character, Alvaro, through his experiences throughout life, kind of being a vagabond and coming from a immigrant family. He's originally from Staten Island. So it's a very, you know, it's fictionalized, but it has this real experience and raw experience to it.
Nice.
And it has, what I really like about it too is, you know, the different formats that it took to film that movie and the crew. You know, it was a great experience, and I'm glad that it got what it deserved.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it.
And also the second film, The French Italian, that was a fun one.
That was the one that was in Tribeca, right?
That was the one in Tribeca.
So tell us a little bit about that one.
It's essentially about a couple who, they have annoying neighbors, and they essentially come up with a plot to get to know, like, what's up, like, why are they annoying? Because the couple was kind of forced to move out of their apartment in the city. And this plot ends up kind of falling back on the couple. It's a funny movie. It's basically about, like, you know, neighbor dynamics in the city.
I love it. It sounds like an interesting, actually, premise. So
yeah, no, it's super funny too. Super funny.
Nice.
Yeah, shout out to the director of that, Rachel Wolther.
Shout out to Rachel. I don't know Rachel, but
shout out to
Rachel.
Rachel.
Check it out.
Yeah.
What was that like working on that film?
It was fun. It was interesting. Great crew. I was able to kind of have an experience of, like, bringing partial investment to the project, but also providing my services as a location manager. And, you know, it helped learn, you know, I learned a lot more on that job. You know, it's kind of
that's the nature of this industry, right? It's kind of like a constant learning. That, to me, one thing that is always attracted to me toward filmmaking is that I feel like it's a weird analogy comparing it to kung fu, but, like, it's like a lifetime of learning.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So, like, each project is unique in a sense.
For sure. And I've, you know, not just, like, I've worked, you know, thankfully I also got unionized. I'm an 817 as a locations member.
Excellent.
So I've had the privilege of working on, like, some major stuff and independent films. So I gained, like, a knowledge on kind of how both operate, which I think is good. Like, somewhere between the guerrilla where you have no money and then, like, the majors where you have, like, unlimited.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting to see.
Because, you see all of the common denominators.
For sure.
And you see the variables as well.
And where I was getting with that, too, is, like, also, like, working on commercials. There's money involved in that. So you get to have some cool freedom. And, like, what I really like about locations management, too, or producing, is, like, being able to get the vision across, you know? Like, we did this really cool Converse commercial, which I think it won, like, some sort of award. I don't know, but the director of that, Colin Reed, shout out to him, and also producer, my mentor, Miranda Kahn, Mermaid Productions. Shout out to her for helping me in my career. Essentially, you know, working with these people, with these creatives, and kind of bringing the logistics and bringing the vision together. Like, I like working with people on that aspect of it, you know?
Just the collaborative
You tell
nature.
me, yeah, exactly. You kind of tell me what you're looking for, they'll tell you in detail. You know, you work with the different, you know, departments to see, like, how it gets done, and, you know, you just get it done. I love scouting, too, for locations.
Yeah. And what's that like?
What's that like? I mean, it really depends. I mean, they'll tell me what they want, and sometimes if it's like a specific house, you know, if I'm in a suburban neighborhood, I'll go knock on doors and explain, and I'll have a letter. If they don't answer, I'll drop the letter and be like, hey, you know, or if they're looking for a specific kind of like a butcher shop or something, you know, you go knock on doors and be like, hey, this is what I do, and, you know, this is what we're looking for, and, you know, we're willing to pay you and could provide insurance.
I'm sure you have like a range of responses from people being excited
for sure
that like a movie is interested in their place. And
you want to hear one of the coolest location stories I've had? Actually, it happened this year. I was in Atlantic City and the neighboring neighborhoods, and I go up to this woman's house, elderly woman. She must have been in her 80s or something like that. She's very old and living by herself. And she's like, yeah, come in. And I'm like, thinking to myself, because I've also been told, like, no, it sounds like a scam, right? So this woman was so inviting to let me in. And her husband was some sort of, like, politician in Atlantic City or the area in New Jersey. And she gave me photos that he took back in, I think, the 70s of Atlantic City as, like, some of the, like, before the casinos and as the casinos are going up. So I have these photos at my house. You know, it's like running into different characters, which is really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I like meeting new people and all types of people. That's what's fun about it. She was smoking in her house. She's like, light up a cigarette. I'll tell you, you know, I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about the immersive experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
George and I were in Kosovo this past summer.
That was fun.
That was an immersive experience.
Very immersive.
And we got a chance to attend Doku Fest.
Yeah, that was a fun festival.
That was awesome.
Beautiful city of Prizren. Yeah.
Prizren was amazing.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And the level of hospitality was really something that even myself as an Albanian, and George is Albanian as well, I was overwhelmed by the level of hospitality.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah, it was very, awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Great food, too.
Yeah, great food.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And, yeah, you know, being immersed in the experience and the story, I think that's, you know, you got to find yourself in it.
Yeah. I think that's so important, too. And that's one thing I admire about you, George, is you're somebody that likes to taste life.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, because other than that, like if you're just sitting at home and on your computer all the time, or just buried in your phone, like, you know, like so many people are, like, what are they going to tell stories about?
You have to go out there, man.
Yeah.
You have to live.
I see that you're somebody that really goes out there, you know, and so I appreciate that about you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. After this movie I'm currently working on, immediately go to Mississippi, and it's like, that's what I like about it. Goes back to St. John, seeing that brochure. Like, do you like to travel? And I'm like, yeah, I like to travel. I like to see different walks of life. And, you know, I want to be able to keep on doing that. Like, when I was in Canada, it was so interesting. My best friend is from Jordan. And, you know, to see the billboard, like, I think, like, Royal Kingdom of Jordan's, like, film commission, and, you know,
they're on
seeing that, and, like, I want to
the pavilions, right?
Yeah, I want to work in Jordan, or like a country like Bahrain, you know?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool about Cannes, is when you're there, and first of all, it's beautiful for anybody that's never been. It's on the French Riviera, and there's all these pavilions from different countries that are like these giant tents.
I like that. Yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool, because you just pop into these tents and see the different film commissions from the different, you know, nations of the world, and it's, you know, it's so cool. And there's so many stories out there.
That's what I
like. I think I noticed post-COVID is that, like, it's, you know, it was a global experience that we all went through, and we're starting to realize that it's like it's one big world. There's so many stories out there from different countries and people, and that's what I think is beautiful about America too, especially New York. Growing up in New York, you grow up with so many different cultures. To be able to, like, let's say, go to, a different state or city or a country and meet people, and kind of, I've noticed experiences where, like, having Indian friends growing up or Spanish friends and then kind of going somewhere else in the world and having something to talk about quickly, I think, is something to kind of...
Oh, yeah. I've been in those
really
situations,
cool.
too.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally know what you mean.
Cultural kind of database. You want to build your cultural database.
You have more of a cultural frame of reference than people in other parts of the country.
For sure.
When you're out there in Cannes and you're watching It Doesn't Matter on the big screen, that must have been like an electrifying sort of experience.
It was, yeah, it was cool just to see people be receptive to it. And listen, I'm just happy that there are people able to get to see it,
Yeah,
and find themselves in it as well. And if they didn't, that's fine too.
I know what you mean. It's all part of it. So I haven't seen the film
It was
yet.
really cool though. It was a very electrifying experience.
Cannes is wild too, because I don't know, like when I was out there, I've been out there twice to attend the film market, and then I had a badge, and me and my producer George Rudai, we were like doing the deal to get our film, The Trouble, distributed, and our distribution company was out there. Shout out to Andy Rice, and then we were, first of all, just like attending a lot of other movies, like, because we had these passes where we could just like go pretty much to like almost any movie, and it was just incredible. Just like for people that love films, like film heads, like it was just like being in heaven.
Yeah,
and,
it was
like,
really cool.
And then also sometimes it's like wild out there, because you'll be at a club and you're like, whoa, that's like Snoop Dogg, like DJing, like right behind me. Like, what is going on here? Like Wiz Khalifa was performing.
I actually didn't do the clubs out there.
Oh, did you? I'm surprised that you didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. No.
Yeah. I didn't want to. So it was funny because
we went for like 4 days.
Yeah. I was there for like a week.
Show the film and pop out.
And to some of the clubs I was kind of dragged out to go. The first time was with my cousin Maria, who was involved in casting. She was like, come on, let's just go check out some stuff. And I'm like, just wanted to be like business minded, like, no, let's wake up at like crazy early. And we ended up doing like sort of both things, but I'm glad that I got dragged out a lot, because it was a lot of fun.
You have to have fun with it for sure.
But anyway,
that's the film industry. It's carny life.
Exactly.
It's carny life, man.
And plus, George, I have a feeling that's your first of many trips out there. So
God willing.
Yeah. There's a reason I think it's the #1 film festival in the world. Like, I'm sure you got a sense of that immediately.
Yeah, immediately. This was my first year kind of also experiencing festivals. So
wow,
I was just thrusted kind of into it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to my boy Jay Will, who starred in our movie It Doesn't Matter. He starred in a movie called Raw Peace, which I think is coming out soon on Netflix. Directed by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Jay Will, very good actor. He's in the show Tulsa King. Go watch that.
Who does he play in Tulsa King?
Tyson.
Oh yeah, he's good, dude.
Yeah, he's a very good actor.
That's your friend. He's good.
Yeah, I met him through It Doesn't Matter.
Yeah,
and so we went out to Sundance, and that was an interesting experience as well. So this year, and then Tribeca was my first festival experience. This year was my first festival, and
that's wild.
Yeah. So I kind of just got thrusted into it, but it's fun. Yeah. I like it. I like making movies more. I like the being on set process more. It was interesting to see a different side of, the industry, which is when the movie comes out and premieres.
Listen, I love being on set, obviously.
It was really cool once. Actually, sorry to cut you off.
Not at all.
But back in June, I went to Kosovo my first time, And when I was flying back, I think I was on Austrian Airlines. They were showing a movie that I worked on. It was the job that I got unionized on, called Miranda's Victim, which I think is on Hulu. It's about the Miranda rights, and it's like a historical period piece courtroom drama, and
Nice.
starring Abigail Breslin. Really good movie if you're into courtroom stuff. But to see that on the plane too, and I got to see a fellow Albanian who's from Kosovo on my flight, like directly, like watching it toward the end of the flight. So when we landed, like the movie was just ending. So it was like, what'd you think? He was like, oh yeah, I liked it. And I was like, yeah, I worked on that. And it was really cool to just see it like on the plane, you know?
That is awesome.
Yeah. And to see it out there. I'm on Netflix too. You know, I there's a little 2-second snippet of my first job ever. It's a Netflix show called It's Bruno, short form comedy. Really good show about a man and his dog. And there's a 2-second clip of me in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, but that's what I like about it, is just kind of like seeing the projects you worked on, you know, being seen by other people on these streaming platforms or airplanes. I think it's really cool to be part of like macrocosm, you know, being part of the micro to the macro.
That is amazing. And it's amazing that you're in a position to kind of like back to that full immersion, but like seeing first you're working on all these things and then you're seeing them come to fruition between like the Cannes Film Festival or being on the plane and then seeing somebody watching a movie that you worked on and then them coming out on streaming platforms and all of that. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Nice. What's one of your favorite things about producing?
Just being on set, really. I like being on set and seeing the pieces come together after planning it and whatnot, and just kind of going with the flow of that.
Do you embrace the
madness, the chaos?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, that's important. I was going to say the problem-solving nature.
Yeah,
of
of course. Yeah.
Because I think but you're right about like the chaos and the madness. And I was hearing, it's interesting.
It's all good stuff.
It's all good, and you have to be into that. I saw Ridley Scott talking about that on an interview.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's like, he said that you have to just kind of like what you're talking about, the chaos and the madness. You have to be a person that sort of thrives on that. He's like, you can't be a nervous Nelly, you know?
Yeah.
Which, listen, I don't think it's bad to sometimes be nervous either. They say Steven Spielberg yaks in a garbage can every time.
Yeah.
Like he shows up to set and he's Steven Spielberg.
No, I think that's good because I think, you know, you have to kind of also have that in order to want something good.
Exactly. That just means you care, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
It's just about kind of like persevering through that, even if you're feeling sort of nervous and just like bringing it together. That's kind of how I look at it, like, you know?
Exactly.
Because nothing's perfect, you know? Like everybody wants things to be perfect, and it's like there's no such thing as perfection. So all you could do is like the best thing that you could do. And then sometimes like it's like the best laid plans of mice and men, or like they don't come to fruition. So you have to kind of figure it out, you know?
I do believe that there is a standard though, you know?
Unquestionably.
Yeah, right. Like something, there's a difference between something that's great, good, bad, and horrible.
Of course.
Yeah,
I think that...
But there's no such thing as perfect.
There's no such thing as perfect. No. But there is a such thing as outstanding.
For sure.
You know? And I actually think that like good is sort of shit, right? Because if you're a good... I heard Tony Robbins talk about this on an interview, and I thought it was super fascinating.
What did he say?
He said that if you're a good runner, do you get into the Olympics? And you're like, no, you don't. Like, or if you're a very good runner, do you make it in? No, like, if you're excellent? He's like, no, it's to the point you have to be outstanding. Life is unfair because if you're good, you get poor results.
Interesting.
He's like, but if you're outstanding, then you get outstanding results.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I do think, of course, you have to push for that, like constantly push for that vigor of quality.
For sure.
You know, and, you know, that's unbelievably important. I mean, perfection in the sense of like, okay, well, this is how everything's going to be, and you're preparing for like the best case scenario, and the weather is going to be perfect all day, and we're going to have unlimited time, and like, you know, that kind of stuff. It's like nothing, we're going to have like unlimited budget. It's never going to be like sort of perfect scenarios for you to sort of make your project. So that's, you have to.
I love that phrase. The terrors persist, but so do we.
Yeah.
Terrors persist, but so do we.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
There's always going to be bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Always. And it's just kind of like navigating through
Exactly.
that and developing a mentality of problem solving.
Exactly.
I heard Stanley Kubrick say that.
Solution oriented.
Yes. Absolutely. I know you're big on that.
Kubrick.
Yeah. Kubrick was from the Bronx. Shout out to Stanley Kubrick for being from the Bronx.
Shout out Stanley Kubrick.
Definitely. He was the GOAT, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah. Guy's a mad genius.
He really was, you know. Yeah, he was a total phenom, and he was definitely somebody that liked to aim for perfection, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a very high quality control, like no question. So did David Fincher, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Fincher later on when we talk about the 2 movie scenes.
Oh, you want to get into it now?
We could get into it now.
Yeah.
So, like, before we get into that, is there any sort of upcoming projects that you want to?
Movies that are coming out that I want to see?
Well, like movies that you worked on that people should look out for that, like.
Yeah, a movie that I location manage at the top of this year called Wish You Were Here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It comes out in theaters next year. Go watch it.
I like the title.
Yeah.
It's like the Pink Floyd song.
Oh, really?
There's a Pink Floyd song called Wish You Were Here. It's a great song. All right, cool. So, yeah, as the guests of this podcast know, or the audience, rather, of this podcast knows, I ask each guest about 2 movie scenes that they love. And
you said not to think about it, so I just went with 2 random ones that went off my head.
I think that's the best way to approach it, because otherwise it's too daunting of a task.
Let's talk about it.
So one scene is from the film Gone Girl, directed by David Fincher.
Yeah.
Who is one of my favorite directors for sure, because when I saw Fight Club,
when it came out,
I saw Fight Club when it came out, George.
Yeah.
And I was a freshman.
It was like
in college.
a big thing, right?
Bro,
Everyone
it was
like Fight Club.
It was fucking game changing because
Really?
It was, because now it's easy to see. I mean, it's still a great movie no matter what. I'm sure like you could appreciate the film, but seeing it on the screen at the time, it was almost like, whoa, I'd never seen anything like that. There was like this unprecedented thing about it, you know, that was kind of pretty amazing. They did this cool marketing campaign around Fight Club around New York City. So I would be hanging out in downtown New York with my buddies, and like all of a sudden you just see this poster of soap, and it said Fight Club. And we're like, well, that's kind of interesting. And it's like, and then it had just the date, like October 31st, 1999, or whatever it was, you know. And I remember I saw it on Halloween night, because we left the theater and there was the parade going on in the village.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was.
You remember these moments when you go and see it, you know?
You totally do, yeah.
So I met recently the main like makeup person, prosthetic. He's a big prosthetic and makeup person on major stuff. He worked on the movie The Strangers with Liv Tyler. Remember that movie, horror film?
Yeah.
Came out like...
I didn't see it, but I was familiar with it.
So when he brought it up, like I think they just came out this year with A Strangers, kind of like prequel type.
I see.
Yeah. But very good horror film. I liked it a lot. And I remember seeing it, and I was like, you know, to be talking to people that worked on these projects that you just so vivid. Like I was like, yeah, I remember going to see that at the Fresh Meadows movie theater by the Hooters, you know, in Queens, right off the LIE.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I'm in this position where I'm talking to, you know, people that worked on the magic that I saw growing up.
Yeah.
I think is really cool. But, okay, Gone Girl. Let's go.
All right, so let's talk about Gone Girl.
So the scene I chose...
First of all, let's talk about quickly, for those unfamiliar with Gone Girl, it's a film with Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike. I think that's her name.
Yes.
And she was, without giving the whole film away, Neil Patrick Harris is also in it.
Yeah.
By the way, I grew up watching him in Doogie Howser. There was a show called Doogie Howser when I was a kid where he played like a child doctor. Yeah. And the dude from Tulsa King was also in Doogie Howser, Max Casella.
Oh, okay.
He played his best friend, Vinny, that lived next door.
Cool.
You know. Anyway, so Gone Girl was an interesting film because the way that they marketed that film, they made it seem like it was kind of like a similar story to that guy Scott Peterson or whatever that killed his wife Lacey Peterson, and they made him. Do you remember that story that was like 10, 15 years ago? It was a big story.
There was a documentary on it on Netflix, right? Yeah, I think. Yeah,
sure.
I think
that has Netflix documentary all over it. There was probably like 5 different documentaries / like narrative film. I think they made one version of that story where, like for Lifetime, where Dean Cain, the actor Dean Cain, played Scott Peterson because he kind of looks like him. Anyway, so. What was kind of interesting about the story is I thought it was going to be about that, and it totally went in a different direction. Like, it was a cool movie because I thought it was going to be about one thing, and I was like, oh, you guys went in a totally fucking different direction that I was picturing, and I love when movies do that.
You know, it's a movie you don't watch with your mom in theaters.
Did you watch it with your mom in theaters?
Yeah, I remember going with her to the theaters to watch it. It was a very good movie.
Right. But I could see from the marketing of, like, you know, there's a chance I could have seen it with my mom in the theater for sure. I saw like Slumdog Millionaire with my mom.
Okay. Now that we're talking about that, love that movie.
I love
Slumdog Millionaire is one of my favorite movies.
It's so good. Danny Boyle, directed by Danny Boyle.
One of my favorite movies.
I love it.
We can talk about Slumdog Millionaire.
Let's talk about Slumdog Millionaire too.
But real quick, going back to Gone Girl, just to loop.
Let's go down the rabbit hole here. So what's the scene? Tell us.
The scene I chose was, you know,
give us some context.
When Rosamund Pike is at her ex-boyfriend's house, right, and she's kind of using him without
him. Neil Patrick Harris.
And she's using him, and he doesn't know it. He just thinks like she's back, right, and they're like getting ready to make love. She grabs a knife and slits his throat, and the blood pours all over her. And I think it's just a visually like striking shot when that happens. I like stuff like that when it's visually striking.
It's very, very...
Yeah, the way they did it, it was really good.
It anchors into your brain for sure.
Yeah. And then let's just go into the other scene that I chose, which was Gaspar Noé's climax. The dance scenes.
So
in that are...
Shout out to Gaspar Noé. I've met him before. He's a really interesting filmmaker. I met him at the IFC Center when he was screening Love in 3D.
Also a great movie. Love that. Love.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. It was crazy seeing that in 3D on the big screen for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, of course. Wow, really?
Yeah,
3D.
Yeah. And he was there. Gaspar Noé was there just like presenting it. And it was pretty cool. I got to talk to him afterward. And yeah, so tell us about Climax. That's also an interesting film.
I mean, the music, the dancing, the way he shot it, the colors, visually striking.
So
visually striking, man.
He's definitely a bold filmmaker. I loved his work since Enter the Void when that came out.
Visually striking
for sure. Really interesting filmmaker that I really appreciate his work as well.
Now let's go back to Slumdog Millionaire because I love that movie.
All right, well hold on. Let's round out Climax because we could go down the Slumdog rabbit hole, which I do want to. I love that movie as well. It's so good.
The book is great too.
Oh God, I gotta read the book.
Yeah.
Now you're convincing me to read the book.
Read the book. It's so good.
Yeah, nice. So I actually love how the film starts too. Like it has the documentary of like almost style of this TV and has all these interviews with the different cast members and why they're drawn to dance.
Yes.
And these different I love that because it's one of those things where everybody has different motivations for things, right? Like if you have like 5 people that are going skydiving, right? Like might be like 5 different reasons why people are going. Like one person is going because it's an adrenaline rush. One person is going because their friend convinced them. Like another person's going because they want the photos of it. You know what I mean? And it's like it kind of was exploring that, but with dance. And like some people were like, yeah, like I would love to make it to America one day because that would be awesome. And then other people were like, the French have higher standards with dance, and America would be like a joke compared to like France. So it was interesting.
What I liked about those documentary type interviews is also like on the side, if you notice, like there's different books.
Yeah, I love that too.
DVDs too.
It's a bold choice because he just kept it there.
Yeah,
and that's it. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that too. Yeah, because it was like a lot of people would have just shown the full frame documentary series, but the way he framed it is you're watching a TV that's surround like in the middle of this bookshelf, and you see the books on the side, and I like that a lot as well. So okay, so tell us about the scene of the film. The premise of the film in
really
general.
All the dancing scenes. Like even the way it starts after the like with the music kind of bumping, and then like you see this squad just like going in on their dances.
I love it too, and one of the reasons I love it is
the colors too. I think it was like good orange floor,
good use of colors,
and
great use of blocking. Right?
Yes,
because the way that it's choreographed, you see a wide shot of the dance floor, and the camera's not moving the whole time. It's just that's the shot, but it's all in the blocking of the actors and the choreography that makes it visually appealing. And that's kind of almost, I don't want to say it's a lost art, but it's something that I think a lot of newer filmmakers don't pay enough attention to is blocking. You know, there's people that do, of course, but what I'm saying is I think it's something that people regarded more. Like
it's definitely not necessary. What, like hit your marks and whatnot? Yeah,
hit your marks, but just the movement of people in the frame to like create the composition of like creating like a visually appealing composition.
For sure, like the more movement and action. And I like when the camera dances with the human too, or the character. When the character's like doing movements and the camera's kind of like, you know, maybe dollying or that's what I liked about Climax, because it did a lot of that too. The camera was dancing with that was pretty cool.
For sure. And it was a different sort of you wouldn't it's kind of like a I don't want to say a different genre for him, but it's something you almost like a subject matter you wouldn't have necessarily expected.
And you really felt like a fly on the wall in that movie.
So it's about a group of dancers that their punch bowl gets spiked with
acid,
with LSD, and then chaos ensues.
Chaos definitely ensues. Madness. I would go insane if I were in that room too.
You know, by the way, you know that happened on the set of Titanic? Oh, you didn't know about this? This is a fucking big deal. So when James Cameron made the movie Titanic, they were in the lunch hall and somebody spiked the soup
with acid.
And James Cameron's first AD literally ran toward him with a knife because she was tripping on acid and wanted to kill James Cameron. Yeah. It was
no way.
It was never found out, I think, like who did it. The culprit never.
That's scary, man.
It's super scary.
That's scary.
Yeah. Like that's crazy.
That is insane.
Yeah. So that actually happened on the set of Titanic.
I think I would just leave and go for a long walk. If that happened on set and I ate the soup and it was like spiked with a lot of acid, I would just leave without telling anyone and just walk, because I would probably freak out.
Yeah.
She ran after him with a knife.
Yeah. So I've never done acid. So it would be disconcerting having this feeling of like what's going on right now. Like, because I think a lot of people just wouldn't have an awareness that like they know something is terribly wrong, but maybe they think they're like straight up poison, like they're dying, like, I don't know. I think that's a really sinister thing to do, is like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Like,
makes for a good movie.
It makes for a good movie.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that James Cameron thing was part of the motivation for Gaspar to like,
perhaps.
Hey, I wonder, like, but yeah, I didn't learn about that story until kind of like a few years ago, until I was listening to a podcast.
I think I had saw somewhere that was like actually like a true story of a dance troupe.
Oh yeah.
Like actually went through that.
Wow.
I don't know how true that is, but
I could picture
it was like in the 90s.
Well, I could picture that like somebody like spiking like a punch bowl.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Good movie though.
Yeah, really good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really bold filmmaking style.
For sure.
All right. Sure. So Danny Boyle. Are you a fan of Trainspotting?
I have to revisit that movie. I was a fan of it when I watched it, but I was like super young, and
I saw it in the theater.
I should go back and watch it.
When I was 14 years old, I saw that movie in the theater.
Really?
Yeah.
That's dope. I like the beach a lot.
It was dope, but I didn't fully appreciate the movie until I saw it much later. I was like, okay, like You know, like, all right, like this is an interesting movie.
Did you watch the sequel? I didn't watch the sequel.
I did watch the sequel.
Yeah.
I
What'd you think?
It's not like the original.
Yeah,
it's not like the
Did
original.
Danny Boyle do the sequel too?
He did.
He directed it.
Yeah, I didn't hate the sequel. I wasn't like, oh, this is trash. Like it was a fun watch.
Yeah,
and seeing,
yeah.
like, you know, I still like the characters and
yeah.
like kind of like, you know, like I remember having a fun time watching the sequel in the theater. Like it wasn't like, oh God, I can't wait for this to be over. You know, it wasn't like that. But it was, if I was gonna go revisit one of those movies, it would be the original.
You know what movie I saw, or a series I saw recently? It was like back to back. Richard Linklater's The Before series.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
interesting. I also like Richard Linklater a lot.
I like
Real
him a
quick,
lot.
like also kind of Dazed and Confused is also like
It's a masterpiece.
one of my favorite movies as well.
It's a great film.
The way it starts off with sweet, I don't sing, but
his use of tracking shots
Yeah.
is like incredible, actually. You know, and the way he follows, the way he could kind of film this ensemble full of characters,
amazing.
It's really amazing. Do you know that Matthew McConaughey?
That was like his first role.
That was his first role, and
I think that movie. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
Captures a great sense of youth culture in America.
yes,
If you want to know what youth culture in America is, watch that movie.
I'm here to drink some beer to kick some ass.
Crazy.
We're all out of beer.
I think Richard Linklater did really good with that movie.
Yeah, shout out to Richard Linklater.
But Danny Boyle,
British filmmaker.
Slumdog Millionaire, man.
Incredible.
I can't want to get right to it. Love that movie.
Let's get okay. So
One of
Slumdog
my
Millionaire.
favorite
If
movies.
somebody is listening to the podcast, they've never
Seen it,
they got to stop everything and
go watch it. Yeah,
Because, it's a really inspiring.
very inspiring movie.
I think George, you're like me. Like you like stories of the underdog, right? Prevailing. You know,
For sure.
that's something that's important to me. I guess give us the premise of the movie for somebody that's never seen it.
Ooh. Essentially, it's about this kid from the slums of, I think, Mumbai, who him and his brother, they become orphans, and this kid falls in love with this girl, another orphan that they run into in the slums, and essentially it follows his experience of getting onto Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in India to try and find her. And there's this just interesting dynamic of this character, his brother, this girl, and their experiences of like
Told in flashbacks. As he's answering questions on the show.
Exactly. Yeah.
But good setup of good.
Dude, it's love that movie. You have to watch that movie.
It's very powerful, and
Very
that
powerful movie.
that was a movie that was like an unexpected smash hit.
Yeah,
compared to the budget,
because it was cool. It had this like Bollywood crossover.
It did,
you know. It had this really good Bollywood crossover ending too, and like I don't know. I really love the movie and the whole that Slumdog kind of underdog getting it.
Yeah, me too.
All odds against you. And then I think what's great about that movie is like, in order to answer these questions, if you haven't seen the movie, stop the podcast now. But in order to, answer these questions, he sees signs from his experience. That's what goes back to the flashbacks, right? Because there's these signs that he had in life that kind of help him answer the questions for him to become a millionaire.
Yeah. What's one of my pet peeves, man?
What?
Is when somebody like they'll read up on a movie like that and then they don't watch it because they're like, "Oh, I know what it's about already. I read up on it." And it's like,
way.
But there's a lot of people like that.
No.
It's like, "Oh, I already know the story, so I don't need to watch it." And that's like saying,
I don't get it.
To me, that's like saying, "Oh yeah, I read up on this restaurant, this meal that this world-class chef has made, so I don't need to eat the meal."
Yes, essentially.
Seeing the film is like consuming the meal. Like you can't appreciate the film unless you've seen it.
I'd rather watch a movie without reading up about it.
I'm the same way, actually. I really try not to read up on, like last night I was at a film festival and I was talking about the movie Anora. I was like, oh, I really want to see that.
I was just thinking, like, Anora was just in my head.
Nice.
And I was just going to say, shout out Anora, which was also at Cannes when we were there.
Yeah, won the Palme d'Or.
Dude, yeah, my boy worked on locations on that movie. Shout out to Ben Wiseman, really good guy. Came up with him, PA days.
And shout out to Sean Baker.
Shout out to Sean Baker.
New York filmmaker, nice guy.
Is he from New York? I don't think he's from New York.
Are you sure?
I don't think he's from New York, but
he might not be, but he's
for
around
someone who's not from New York.
Yeah.
Shout out to him for making a really good New York movie.
I assumed he was only because I've seen him around New York a lot. But maybe he's not. It's totally possible he's not.
Who doesn't come to New York?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was a New York guy.
Really good movie.
I met him in Brooklyn once.
People need to watch Anora.
Yeah.
Support independent film.
So that's a good
Support
example.
independent film.
Definitely support independent. Let me double down on that. Support independent film. Hell yeah.
We need independent
and
film.
for no other reason, shout out to our good friend Nick Olds on the podcast.
Yeah. Shout out Nick Olds.
George, Nick, and I were together last weekend, and Nick was the man.
It was fun.
Shout out to Best Nick.
Best Nick.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Support independent films. Support independent filmmakers.
All right, so
support independent voices.
Absolutely, I co-sign on all of it. So regarding Anora, I'm at a film festival last night, and I was telling a filmmaker like, "Oh yeah, that's like next on my list. I really want to see Anora."
And what they say?
He's like, "Yeah, it was great," and then he starts talking about it. He's like, "This is what the beginning of the movie's like," and this is what I was like, "Shut up, stop."
Yeah.
Like he gave me a recap in like 2 sentences. Where I'm just like, all right, it's too much, too much info. I want to see the film.
I prefer not to be told what, especially if someone ruins an ending, I get pissed.
Yeah,
even though I kind of ruined the ending of SLUMDOG Millionaire for.
Listen, I know,
but you should have seen that movie. So
yeah, that movie's from 2010. I think that's okay.
2008.
2000. Good fucking call, George. I like how you
good book.
I like how you fact checked me. But so it's even older. So it's the movie's 16 years old now? Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah.
I think I was like 12 when I saw it.
Huge
impact on my
on your movie watching.
Psyche. Yeah.
And you saw that in the theater, in the cinema?
No, actually. I saw it we rented it after. Yeah, I saw it at home. That was a movie we did not see in theaters. Because it just was such a came out of nowhere movie.
It did. It came out of nowhere, and that was a movie that everybody was talking about. I worked at an office at the time in 2008, not related to film, just like a corporate job, and everybody was corporate America job. And I remember everybody.
Shout out to corporate America.
Shout out to spreadsheets. That's the only. That's my only takeaway from corporate America, is that I learned how to make spreadsheets.
Yeah,
and I still use those spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Other than that,
they're helpful. You need them in film too.
I was just talking about that with Kent Sanderson, who's the president of Bleecker Street. He's like, before I got involved in film and being a producer, he's like, I never imagined how many spreadsheets I'd be looking at.
Same.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
Yeah. Are you a big list guy? I'm a big list guy. I make lists you
need lists. I'm a big list and note guy.
Yeah,
for sure. And reminders. Hey Siri, set a reminder for this.
I gotta lean on Siri for things like that. I don't use Siri, actually. I don't have it set up on my phone. I've never had Siri set up on my phone.
Yeah, I always look at my phone when I say
when we
Siri,
say it, because then it turns on.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, George, what could I help you with?
Big list note.
This is something that's been on a lot.
Guy.
This is on, and sorry to
and calendars.
What do you think of the prevalence of AI in modern society?
That's interesting. I was just having this conversation with someone who's like saying AI is going to take over, and I'm like, yeah, I would love to have a R2D2, but I don't know. I still think you need humans. I think AI is definitely helpful in certain aspects. Someone was just saying that AI completely decimated the animation world recently, and I don't know, I haven't really done my research on that, but apparently there's been a lot of layoffs in animation and whatnot at these major corporations. So I'm not sure. I think it's definitely going to affect the post world for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have a clear answer for that. I really hope it doesn't. You know, I hope automation doesn't really kind of screw humans, because it's not just going to be our industry. It's going to be a lot of industries.
A lot of industries.
But I don't know. I mean, like,
but could you stop it?
Could you? That's the thing.
That's
like,
the thing.
yeah, and how do you adapt with it? To be honest with you, this might sound crazy, but like, I see a future where, you know, AI is definitely going to be a huge part of it. I don't think, you know, I definitely see a transhumanistic society in the future. I think that's just kind of like the evolution of things. We're just gonna, you know, codependent on technology.
Yeah.
To get stuff done. And you know, everyone's like, I remember like all these conspiracies saying, oh, they're gonna put a chip in you and whatnot. I mean, Neuralink.
Oh, I do.
It happened,
that.
yeah, but like,
I do remember that.
they already have us walking around like the chip. You know,
Yes.
like we already built
attached
that
to this practically.
cyborg kind of connection. And I mean, this is not about film, but like prosthetic arms. Like, I think it's a nice thing to be able to have like some sort of cybernetic kind of connection for, let's say, a veteran from war whose arm got, you know, amputated, and to give them a robotic arm that maybe could connect to their nerves. And like, you know, like I think that's cool. You know, like,
do you remember were you into the movie Forrest Gump?
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
at the end when Lieutenant Dan like showed his leg? He's like, "Look, it's like the same material as the space shuttle."
Yeah.
That always stuck in my head.
Well, Lieutenant Dan, if this movie was made in like 2040, would have robotic legs.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I do think we're going toward a society where we will see more. You know, AI is definitely. You know, it's just we need to chill a little bit, but I think humans are definitely going to be needed. I think you're going to see a society of humans who want to stay. I think we're going to call them naturalists.
Yeah.
Who want to kind of,
good
you
call.
know, the new Amish.
Yes.
Who don't want to have a chip in them or a robotic arm or integrate. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel like also humans have like predicted horrible things, or, you know, I don't know, have predicted things or expected the worst, and really
we've
not
survived.
Bad. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I like to stay optimistic. I would love to live in a world where R2-D2 is like my homie and whatnot, and my helper and someone who gets shit done with me. You know, it'd be cool, right? You know,
it would be cool. But
I don't know. We need humans.
We got to take it.
We are human.
We are humans, and some of these things like ChatGPT that aggregate,
and it's cool. I use ChatGPT not all the time.
I use it for a variety
I've used
of things.
it for like, hey, make me a list of this.
Oh,
like a bunch of meals that I want to cook. You know?
Yeah. That's an interesting.
Yeah,
it's like
I had it make me like a 7-day, like 3 meals a day with 2 snacks. This specific type of diet.
That's a great idea.
Like, I think it's really, I've used Dolly before and like put in a bunch of different prompts. I think it's interesting. I do know, I mean, actually, it's funny you bring up AI, because I am going to start doing more research, and I've kind of been on top, but like I want to see the softwares that do like video stuff. And I've never really, but what's coming out there is so interesting and crazy. I think there's gonna, it's definitely gonna help independent filmmakers, but I don't know. I think you need humans. There's nothing like being on set. I don't want to be on set with like
just a computer.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I'm with you, man.
I want to work with people. We're social beings.
I think we're social beings as well, and I think performances, no matter how good a machine could generate like some sort of AI kind of acting, like I'd rather work with or just a group of actors and seeing them react to each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's incredible.
But it's definitely something to watch out for and be aware of, and keep updated with.
I think listen, I'm with you. I'm a person that I try to remain optimistic, and I try not to over sensationalize things, because I'm sure these kind of topics we're talking about when the internet first came out in general,
I think I had read something that CAA is doing something with like a AI database with their actors and whatnot, which I think is interesting. Like, I think it would be cool, like, later on, you kind of have this character of, like...
Okay, like, I want to see John Travolta in a movie 50 years from now or whatever.
You know, or it could be even applicated to other things where it's, like, I don't know, like a hologram for a billboard. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like Blade Runner 2049 stuff.
Right. That was a amazingly shot film, right? Talk about like a visual stunning film.
I like Denny. Sicario, his Sicario,
Sicario
movie was really good. Yeah.
Love Sicario. I saw that in the ArcLight movie theater in Los Angeles. Prisoners was incredible.
Yeah. He's also he's a really good director.
Arrival was phenomenal.
The sound design on that was
so good.
Yeah, Premiere.
Yeah. You know what? That's a movie that rewards repeat watchability.
Arrival?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like when I first saw the movie, for some reason, I just didn't. I think it was just because I watched it late at night and I was probably just like tired and like zoned out. And then I saw it again more recently, and it blew me away. You know? Yeah. It was like really, really something.
Yeah, I like Arrival.
So George, where could people follow along with you?
Sure. I think my Instagram handle is like GBENO_.
Nice.
So if you want to follow me.
Excellent. George Beno, thank you so much for being on the Film Situation Podcast.
Appreciate it, Zef. You're the man. Thank you.
Likewise, man.
Support independent film.
Support indie film.
Thank you for listening to the Film Situation Podcast with your host Zef Cota. Today's guest was George Beno. Camera work by Khalid Al-Thani. Post-production by Grace Castagnetti. Editing assistance by Amanda Fredette. Music by Yuri Ryback.